7:35 on your Friday, April 12th, 2024. You're listening to The Morning Show with Slim and Al here on Talk 104 FM, 930 AM WKCT. And as I said earlier, we have a guest with us that's on the phone. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. I know that Brian Crawford was supposed to be joining us, but he had a late-minute change. And we have Alex Davidson, Director of Public Affairs at the Beer Institute. Good morning, Alex. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you guys?
We're doing wonderful. Thank you for adjusting your schedule to participate in this interview. We greatly appreciate it.
Of course. Any opportunity to talk about beer, I'll take it. So, happy to be here.
You are not alone, I think, in that. And National Beer Day, which was on the 7th, has a political significance because it goes back to the start of the repeal of prohibition. Tell us a little bit about that.
Exactly. So 1933, prohibition, it was on the chopping block. People realized it wasn't working. FDR had run on a campaign to repeal prohibition. And so then on March 22nd of 1933, they passed the Cullen-Harrison Act. And the whole idea behind the Cullen-Harrison Act was to repeal the prohibition on low-alcohol beverages like beer. So then that was signed, went into effect on April 7th. Beer was actually legalized before other products. So, people often think about December 5th as the full repeal of prohibition.
Right.
But for beer, it started a little bit earlier. So, we were a little different, a little special. But FDR signed the Cullen-Harrison Act and actually said, I think this would be a good time for a beer.
Is that right? He said, say it again. He said what?
I think this would be a good time for a beer.
How about that? It is interesting from a political standpoint. That's what we talk mostly about on this show, is that the Cullen-Harrison Act, they could get done more quickly than they could to the 21st Amendment that would repeal the 18th Amendment. And so the Cullen-Harrison Act was actually a workaround that Roosevelt wanted to put in as to start being able to sell wine and be able to sell beer, because they could get that done more quickly than they could to all alcohol. So it's pretty interesting. Now, most people, when they think about the first week of April, I don't know if lots of people think about the Masters. But there is a beer and a Masters connection that goes on. Tell us about that.
So, we think about beer in a lot of different occasions, and the Masters is no different. I think one of the things that people always think about the Masters is they've got this great food and beverage system where, everyone thinks about, you go to an arena these days, things are so expensive. You go to the Masters, you can pick up a sandwich for $1.50 and a beer for $5 or $6. So we were thinking, how can we tie together National Beer Day and the Masters? So we surveyed people around the country, and we said, of all of the Masters champions, some of the big names, Tiger Woods, Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, Phil Mickelson, who would you most like to have a beer with? And probably unsurprisingly, Tiger Woods ran away with it. So he had 35% of the vote. Arnold Palmer came in second with 19% of the vote. Then, we wanted to get into the food and beverage portion, and we said, of the top iconic sandwiches that people have at the Masters, it's pimento cheese, egg salad. They have a great pork barbecue sandwich. Which would you most like to have with a beer? And probably unsurprising, pork barbecue sandwich went best with beer in people's eyes. So they picked that in a landslide.
I'm not surprised that eggs didn't win, although I have to say, when I was a younger man, I had more than one beer with eggs, and it goes down. It goes down. You know what I mean? But that's
exactly. And it was kind of funny because we saw that the people that really said that they were true Masters fans.
Yeah.
They were more into the pimento cheese sandwich or the egg salad sandwich. But I guess for someone who's a little less initiated, you kind of go, why the heck would you want that?
Right.
But it's so iconic as part of the event.
It really is. It's so interesting to me that the food there at the Masters, you can still get a sandwich for $1.50, and no item to eat or drink is more than $3, which is just incredible in today's economy.
Yeah, and I think that it's reflective of beer trying to stay affordable in general, but I think that the Masters people, it's so hard to get a ticket, but once you get there, they really want to make sure that you have the best experience possible.
Absolutely. Tell us about, do you have numbers? I hope I'm not catching you off guard with this, Alex, but I try to really focus on Kentucky as it relates to this show to be as local as possible. Do you have any idea what the economic impact in Kentucky is of beer? Because we often think of bourbon when we think of Kentucky, or maybe hard liquor, and think of beer less.
You didn't catch me flat-footed. I got you ready.
All right.
So people often think of bourbon when they think of Kentucky. They should be thinking of beer. It's 21,000 jobs within Kentucky out of 2.4 million jobs nationally, and that translates to about $3.7 billion in economic impact. And so that really touches linkages from agriculture to production to distribution, retail. Each job in the beer industry directly creates 30 other jobs in other sectors in the economy. So you've got 21,000, almost 21 jobs in Kentucky that are directly related to the beer industry.
That is incredible, because I do. When you say people should be thinking beer rather than bourbon, I think they can both coexist. But I think people probably underestimate the economic impact that goes on in Kentucky as a result of the making and distribution of beer. Does the Beer Institute have a position on a lot of these craft beers that are out there, Alex, or people that have gotten into home brewing?
So we represent primarily package brewers. So these are the breweries that primarily make their income from selling in retail and through bars and restaurants. But we like to think that there's a beer for everybody. And we saw a real large increase in brewing in the 80s and 90s. We went from about 50 breweries in the United States. We've got more than 9,000 now. So there's a brewery in every congressional district in the country, and there's more than 20,000 products on the market, and we think that's good for people. And a lot of these iconic breweries started as home brewing. We think about Sam Adams, Sierra Nevada. You had a guy with a dream, and he brewed a good beer, and now they're multi-million, billion-dollar companies.
Yeah. It's so many. There are so many American success stories as it relates to really beer consumption and the making of beer in the United States. That when you really start digging into it, you can really get into what I call the wormhole. You can start reading about things and learning things that you never even thought that you might, that you didn't know were out there, and then you think, "Wow, I'm reading this, and I don't know why, but it's so interesting. I can't seem to pull myself away."
It's a massive industry. I was telling you earlier, there's 2.4 million jobs nationally. The beer industry has $409 billion in economic output.
Wow.
So the beer industry is equal to about 1.6% of U.S. GDP.
And so when you see... that's incredible. When you see something... happen like Bud Light, the thing that went on with Bud Light and all the controversy that surrounded that, is that something that Bud Light has recovered from, or is that something that you either don't know or choose not to talk about?
Well, it's something we try to not talk about individual brands.
Fair enough.
Just because we represent so many people. But I think, you've seen a lot of recovery, and that we're going to continue to see that recovery.
Yeah, fair enough. That really was an off-the-wall question. I apologize. It just occurred to me when I started thinking about the big beers. So how do you celebrate the Masters? Are you a golfer? Are you a golf fan?
So I am a golfer. I would say I'm not a good golfer, but I am a good time. Yeah. So, usually with a beer in hand, and I'm going to be looking forward to watching all weekend. Usually at Masters weekend, I try to get out and play a little bit because most people are home watching. So,
right.
You can watch on your phone while you play, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm a lefty, so I always hope that Phil Mickelson will pull it out. Mm-hmm. But looking at the standings right now, it's not seeming too hot.
Yeah. Alex Davidson, Director of Public Affairs for the Beer Institute. Alex, thanks for joining us, talking a lot of things, from the Colin-Harris Act of 1933 all the way up to the Masters tournaments that's being played today. We appreciate you making the time for us, sir.
Thank you guys for having me.
All right. Have a great week.